Hi, I am Cita Gibson. My name is long, so for short, you can call me Cita, like Rita, Cita. Uh, this is my story. I hail from the U.S. Virgin Islands, so if you hear me say something like "man," you know what I'm talking about. So I grew up in the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. Anyone been there? Yes, good. And it's about 13 miles long at the longest point, and it's 3.5 wide at the widest point. Now, I want to do a quick survey in here. And the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to ask you to clap when I ask you this question. How many baby boomers are in the house? All right. How many millennials are in the house? How many Gen X are in the house? Okay. And how many pre-boomers are in the house? Pre-boomers. That's before 1967? All right, all right. Okay, here's my story. This is my story. And it's from the pit to the palace. So you said, she's talking about the pit. Well, the pit can be everything, and my pit is not your pit. The pit can be depression, suppression, or oppression. The pit could be a divorce. The pit can be anything you want it to be that hinders you from going to your next level of success. I have had many pits on my journey, but I didn't let those pits hinder me or keep me back. My story from the pit to the palace stems from private to colonel. I was in the military for 29 years, 7 months, and 28 days, and a snap. Okay? Thank you. And I thank you for clapping, but I volunteered, and Uncle Sam takes pretty good care of me right now. So I thank you for clapping. Okay, this is me. You know, oh, isn't she a cute baby? This is me. I am the product of the union of Claude and Juanita Maloon. Both of my parents are deceased right now, but that was me as a baby. I grew up, and this man was my hero. He died in 2004 at the age of 93. He taught me most of what I knew. Back then, I didn't know that everything that he taught me at the time, I would be using in my military career, I would be using in the community. He taught me a lot of things. This man here only went to the 6th grade. And back then, 6th grade was like a college degree. He would say words that every time my dad said a word, I had to look it up. And I would ask him what the first word that I think I asked him, he said copacetic. Well, now I was about 8 or 9 years old. I said, Daddy, well, how are you doing today? He said, copacetic. And you know, at that age, you don't really know what copacetic is. So he would make us, not only me, but my siblings, he would make us look up every word that he gave us. He was very smart. He was intelligent. He was almost like Jesus because he started as a carpenter. He retired. He retired as a policeman, and he was one of the great historians of the U.S. Virgin Islands. So those of you that have been to the Virgin Islands, Fort Christian, the next time you go up there, you'll see some of my father's photographic works in there. He served under about 8 or 9 governors. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Because this is part of my socialization process. You know, that person on my left, your right, that's me. And that's when I was in high school. And so I graduated from Charlotte Amalie High School, one of 2 high schools that it had on the islands at the time. And one of the things I liked was I love music. I played the clarinet for 8 years. Some of you didn't know that about me. And I love music because that man, my hero, my mentor, my mom was my mentor too, but my dad, he played the violin, and we always had music in our lives. Now, what does music have to do with your career building? Well, those of you that are educators know that some kids, young adults, they learn a whole lot better when they listen to music. And I know the Gen X do, and I have 2 millennials in my home, and they would be studying with music in their ears. Well, it's something about the rhythm of music that keeps you in a beat and helps you to learn a little bit better. Now, next, this is me. I'm going to just skip forward here. Oh, yes. Yeah, I know, I look cute on the left. When I came into the military at that time, I was a WAC. Anybody know what a WAC is in here? Thank you, ma'am. The Women's Army Corps, that's where they separated the men from the women. I am the second to the last iteration of the WACs. And I would tell you, I started as a private, and I was at Fort McClellan, Alabama. Now, I'm telling you all this because I want you to know that it wasn't easy going from the pit to the palace. When I came through basic training, I went to the recruiter. You know, the recruiter, sometimes they don't tell the truth all the time. I came from a generation where they were all teachers. How many of you had that same problem? Your mom was a teacher, your auntie was a teacher, your uncle was a teacher, everybody wanted you to be a teacher. Well, I was determined I was not going to be a teacher. Guess what? Fate has it that I ended up teaching anyway, even though I didn't want to do what my parents said. But at that time, I wanted to be a nurse. Now, how many of you remember MASH? Okay. Nurse Houlihan? Well, I wanted to be a nurse, but I wanted to slap her upside the head and get her straight for what she was doing most of the time. But I wanted to be in a MASH unit because I wanted to help others. I've always had the spirit of helping others. So little did I know, sometimes when we think stuff and we speak it, and I like to tell my clients, think differently, think like an executive leader. When you think stuff and you ask for stuff, sometimes it comes through. So my first assignment was at Fort McClellan, Alabama. It's a private, long story short. I went through basic training, experienced a lot of different significant emotional events there, because put yourself in this mindset, because I may say some things that may or may not be politically correct. But put yourself in the mindset, this is the 70s, okay? So in order for me to get to Fort McClellan and get in the military, my parents had to sign. I was 17, and my dad said this, and no offense to anyone in the room. He said, I am not signing for my daughter to go into the military because there are only 2 types of women that go in the military, and my daughter is not one of them, okay? I said, Daddy, what's that? He said, women trying to find men because they want to be married and get away from the parents, and other women trying to be women. And that was a fact back then. And so my dad then signed for me. So I had to wait till I was 18. And then I signed for myself, went in the military, and I got to Fort McClellan, and it was a shock for me because I had never been off of this island. I was on a big plane. It was a Pan American plane at the time. And then they put me in a crop duster from Fort Hamilton, New York. And a crop duster is something like, is a crop duster. Crop duster is a crop duster. And I think it was 8 of us on that plane. And I sat in the middle of 2 ladies, and the one was an African-American young lady, and the other lady was Caucasian. And the Caucasian lady said to me, she said, what y'all doing? I said, we praying. She said, well, I don't know how to pray. I said, well, let's just hold hands and just hum. And so we prayed. That plane landed safely in Anniston, Alabama. Any Alabamians in here? Anniston, Alabama, that's a small airport. So when we got to Anniston, Alabama, I'm speeding this up here. We got to Anniston, Alabama. Guess what? There were some big trucks there and a lot of city girls there. And I just tapped one of them. I said, well, what are those trucks for? They said, those are cattle carts. I said, oh, they must have a lot of cows and stuff around here. Well, they transported us in those cattle carts, okay? And I was one of the last ones to get on, so I had to sit on the floor. So Went through Fort McClellan, Alabama. I made my big debut. I stayed there, graduated. Then I went back to Fort McClellan. Well, I went to Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center, became a nurse. The recruiter said that I could be a nurse. I thought I would be an RN. I was an LPN. And then so they shipped me back to Fort McClellan. And when they shipped me back to Fort McClellan, I ended up in a MASH unit. Can you believe that? The 4th Combat Support Hospital. And I loved it. I loved the unit, but I didn't like the guys in the unit. I happened to be the only female in there, and I was groped daily. Talking about sexual harassment now, back in the 70s, guys did a whole lot of things like that. But I didn't let that obstacle overtake where I wanted to go in my career, because I was very tough. I didn't play around. They called me all kinds of names, the B words and everything else you could think about, but they didn't put their hands on me again. Sometimes you have to just take a stand and do stuff. Take risks. I tell people in today's society, when you want to move up, sometimes you have to take risks. Sometimes you have to stand alone. But be brave. Take the risk. And if you slap one of them one time, the others will get the message. Okay, so then when I was I worked in the hospital, I was in cash unit, went to Reforger, to Europe and everything like that. Then after I finished that, they sent me to, I decided I wanted to become an officer. I was training all these officers in the hospital, in Noble Army Hospital, training these guys and ladies to become registered nurse. So I asked a question. Sometimes we have to ask questions. If you don't know, I tell people, if you don't know something, you need to ask somebody. Don't just guess. If you don't know, ask somebody. So I asked somebody. I asked a couple of people. I said, how did you become an RN? How come I'm training you? You make 3 times the amount of money I make, and I'm training you. And so they told me the process, went to officer candidate school and so forth. Some were ROTC, some were West Point grad. So I decided, I went to school at nights. It wasn't easy, trust me. I went to school at nights, and I got my associate in applied science and nursing. And then I went to the board. I passed. Long story short, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia. I got commission, and I moved on. But let me tell you about Fort Benning, Georgia. Fort Benning, Georgia was called Fort Benning School for Boys. We had to sing that song every day for 4 months. And I always got in trouble there because I said boys and girls, and so I got in trouble a lot for that. However, it's not like that anymore. So that was me the first time I got commissioned, the one with the teeny weeny afro. They made us shave our heads off clean when we were there. I had cut my hair because I had understood that it was going to shave everybody's head off. So I cut my own. So that was it. After 4 months, it grew back a little. And the second one was where I commanded all male unit at Fort Lost in the Woods. How many people have heard of Fort Lost in the Woods? Oh, I see one hand raised back there. It's Fort Leonard Wood, actually. Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri is embedded in a small town between St. Roberts and Waynesville, Missouri. They'll say Missouri. Most of them say Missouri. And it's about 2 hours from Springfield, or an hour and a half from Springfield, and an hour and a half from St. Louis. So we were in the middle of nowhere. That's why they call it Fort Lost in the Wood. Now, moving on forward, the next one was when I got captain, and that's what we wore back then as our dress, our dress uniform. I just wanted you to see that picture there. Here it is. At Fort Leonard Wood in 1987, it was a great year for me because I got my and some people didn't believe this, but I got my bachelor's degree and my master's degree in the same year. In May, I got my bachelor's degree, and in June, I got my master's degree because I did finish my requirements, but I didn't march until in May, and then I graduated with my master's from Webster University, the first master's from Webster in 1987. Another great thing happened to me there in 1987. That's when I graduated with my master's. I commanded there for 20 months When I was in command, I didn't want to have anything to do with anyone. So sometimes you have to put your career on hold. You have to put the family life on hold to get where you want to go. Don't sacrifice your kids. I would tell people that sometimes I didn't have kids at the time, but nowadays I tell folks you have to live a balanced life. You have to have some balance in your life. Don't sacrifice your kids for your career if you can help it. But at that time, I didn't have any kids, and I met a wonderful man. And I prayed. I said, Lord, I want him to be tall, good looking, so we could have nice, pretty babies. But I didn't ask for the one thing, save him, Lord, save his soul, meaning he's a church guy, but he still believes in God, right? So anyway, this is my husband and I, and on the 20th of this month, we have 30 years that we've been together. We were married for 30 years. All right, thank you. And someone asked me, they said to me a couple of days ago, they said, are you going to renew your vows? I said, renew our vows? I remember the vows that my husband and I took. For better, for worse. Some of you took that, right? In sickness and in health, right? Till death do you part. So what is to renew about that? I didn't break my vows. He didn't break his vows. So why do we always have to renew our vows, right? Well, one of the things I said in your careers and everything, you have to have integrity and trust. My husband trusts me. I travel a lot. I'm a professional speaker, so I travel a lot. So he trusts me, and I trust him. I don't go running behind him. If somebody else wants him, I tell him that's fine. Just make sure they can take care of me, too. And he said, well, if you find somebody else, just make sure I get a candy red apple, Harley Davidson truck, and some money, something like that, he said. But anyway, the long story there is your family is very important when you're moving up in your career. I tell people family is important, whether it's your close family or your extended family, they're important. Now, these are the miracle babies. They said I couldn't have any kids. My husband and I were married for 3 years before we had any children, and they said I couldn't have any. And those were the two, I call them miracle babies that we had. Simone and Jonathan, they're both millennials now, 25 and 26. They were 14 months apart. My son is an electrical engineer. I was an engineer in the military for 24 years and a nurse for 5.5. And my daughter, she's a social worker. And they both have very good jobs. And I tell them now, I said, it's time for y'all to take care of me. Because it took me, especially my son, his salary that he makes now, and he's at the patent office, it took me 21 years to make that type of salary. And he's only been there 2 years, and he's 25 years. So I'm looking for a very nice, rich young lady to marry my son. And he can cook very well. His mommy taught him how to cook. Okay, this is me. I retired in 2005. But before I retired in 2005, I had given up everything in about 2001. We moved here to Vieira in 2000 and enjoying life. And then I had a couple of jobs in between that. I worked for Department of Defense, Department of Treasury. My closure job as a civilian was with Homeland Security. So I had some really good jobs. So we got a phone call one day. My husband said, that phone call, I think you should pick it up. I said, no, I'm not picking that up. And what it was in 2002, December of 2002, I got called back up for Iraqi Enduring Freedom, okay? So I got the phone call. I wasn't going to answer, but my husband said, I'm going to call the sheriff, and then he's going to escort you. You got to go. That's what happened when you're married to a military soldier. You don't have to explain anything when they call. You just move on. But it's difficult. We have our challenges as military soldiers because I was a single mom for a while when my husband went to Korea. And he was a single dad for a while. So you have to balance everything. You can't sacrifice one career for the other. You have to balance it because everyone wants to have a career. Okay, and I'm speeding this on up here. So I work for Department of Treasury, Department of Army, throughout Department of Defense, and Homeland Security. Had great jobs as an executive. So what lesson can I give you from working in the Department of Defense and those executive positions that I've had. I worked as a branch, first a territory manager, then a branch manager, and then I worked as a regional manager. The one thing I can say is communicate with your staff. That's the best thing you can do. People don't really care what you know, how many degrees you have, like a thermometer, unless they really, and I know you heard about this before, unless they really know that you care about them. And when you care about them, you'll ask them a little bit about their family, how they're doing, how they're feeling. Be sympathetic. Treat people with dignity and respect. Everybody wants to be respected, don't you? Raise your hand. Right? Well, Aretha Franklin's been singing about that for years. Remember that? Yeah, what do. I can't remember how she said. But anyway, all she wanted was a little bit of respect. Everybody in here wants to be respected. And people want to be appreciated. You don't have to give them I had employees that say to me, the last manager, if she had only told me thank you, I would have been happy. She gave me a $500 and a $1,500 bonus, but that was not as worthy, give them any greater self-worth, as if she had said to them, thank you. Thank you are two powerful words you can use. So thank people for what they do, no matter how small it is. And one of the things I like to do since I've retired, I give back. Living is a part of giving for me. Every December, me and about 11 of our friends, we go to a different island. And we find a school, or we find an orphanage. This is in Barbados. It's the Deacon School, elementary school. It's about 4 years ago I went there. And we gave them books and pencils and crayons and stuff like that. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, I'm going to wait till I get Oprah money and, Oprah money, and then I'll start giving. And a few days ago, I heard a lot of people saying, I'm going to wait till I win the lottery. How's that working for you? Did you win? Anybody in here won the lottery? No, somebody in Massachusetts won. But everybody has something that they can give. And it doesn't have to be monetarily. But, living is a part of giving. Volunteer. Volunteer at We Venture, okay? Volunteer anywhere in the community. Be a mentor. Be a sponsor. That's another thing I tell people to do that has got me, a lesson that has got me. I wish in my earlier years I had understand about mentoring. But I came up through an era where it was all male-dominated. The Corps of Engineers was male-dominated at the time. It probably still is. It's gotten a little bit better. I love the Corps, don't get me wrong, but it was male-dominated. Most of my mentors that taught me how to be, they used to say the B word, most of my mentors were white males. Why? Because that's all it had. There were white males, and they taught me that I had to be tough. Don't take no nonsense. It backfired on some of them because I didn't take nonsense from them either. Yeah, but, you have to have two things that would move you to your next level of success in any career. Get a mentor. You don't have to have one. You can have two or three. But get mentors that will tell you the truth. And get a sponsor. Sponsors are different from mentors. You need to have a mentor and a couple of sponsors. What does the sponsors do for you? The sponsors do for you what your resume, your education, and your degrees can do. It's a part of networking. Yeah, the system is still who you know, believe it or not. It's who you know. You can have all the degrees, like it's a thermometer, but you have to have that sponsor or that person that will say, yeah, I know Cita. She's done this, this, and this. She volunteered this, this, and this. She have helped this, this, and this. So get a sponsor. And, let me go back one right now. I still have 5 minutes, and I'm going to use my 5 minutes. So here's some here's some takeaways for you. 3 principles that I have lived by all the time. God first, family second, everybody else take a number. In that order. Yeah, and you're going to realize that. I put God first because, I have a strong belief in faith. I grew up as a Lutheran. My mother was Methodist. My father was Lutheran. We all went to church together. But God has always been the source and the strong point in my career. I prayed a lot because prayer changes things. Second, empowerment. They call me the empowerment doc. I'm trademarked the empowerment doc. And the reason I'm an empowerment doc is because during the time in my career, I excelled faster than many people. And it was because I empowered myself. I read a book by Harvey Coleman. It talks about empowering yourself. And he talks about 3 things in that book that help you to move up. It's the pie, your performance. Your performance will take you anywhere. And your image, the way you dress, the way you carry yourself. And image does too go along with that language. Your professional decorum, if I've had some women that had some filthy mouths and it didn't take them anywhere. So your performance, the pie, your image, and then exposure. That exposure deals with networking. Networking. There's so many things, so many places. We Venture, network with We Venture, the Small Business Administration, your local chambers of commerce. Networking takes you everywhere. So, and then your attitude. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. I made my kids say that so many times when they were younger that they just say, okay, we got it. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. It is. It ripples off, because if you as a leader or an executive or a person that's moving up, if you have a bad attitude, then it's going to throw back into your workplace. And remove from negativity. I really stay from people that are negative. That could be contagious, either positive or negative. So why don't you just stay on the positive side? And then every day, I do self-talk. Talk to yourself. Tell yourself how beautiful you are. Self-talk. Empower yourself. Whatever you say, most of the time you put in the atmosphere, it comes back to you. And I like to tell people, I'm beautiful. I'm the island queen, of course, And I tell people to say things, and Joel Osteen just came out with and I don't even know, I haven't met him yet, but I'm going to meet him soon. He came up with a series that's called Say So. And I am going through that right now, and I'm a student for life, so every day I'm learning something new. But say what you want to be and put it in the atmosphere. Teach your kids to say positive things. Kids mirror what they see in the home. I don't care what anybody say. They see it at home, because it's part of your socialization process from age 1 to 5. They already know what they're going to be and what they're going to do. And other lessons I tell people is, Shakespeare said this, to thine own self be true. Stop lying to yourself, okay? Stop self-sabotaging yourself. Most of the people that have not moved on in their careers and stuff, it's because of their own self-sabotage. They talk themselves out of things. And I have 1 minute and 14 seconds. And I told a lady this one time, she wanted to get promoted to the next level. And she said, well, I'm not going to put in my application. I'm not going to do this because they're going to hire somebody else. I said, absolutely, they're going to hire someone else. Because if you talk yourself out of applying for the position, they won't see your application and you won't get it. I am Dr. Cita Gibson, the Empowerment Doc. I am glad to be a part of this We Venture series. I thank you all for coming. I thank Erica and all the other ladies for doing what they do in the community. And may God bless each and every one of you.